Effingham County Board meeting to order. Would you call the roll, please?
Lloyd Foster.
Here.
Jim Neiman.
Here.
Karen Lechfeld.
Here.
David Campbell.
Here.
John Perry. Here. Jeff Simpson.
Here.
Doug McCain. Here. Rob Arnold. Joe Taylor.
Here. All right, is there anyone who wishes to speak? All right, Wayne, anybody else? All right, hold on a minute. Yeah. Okay.
Wayne Russell, Effingham. Does anybody on the board have any disclosures to make regarding this action? Is anybody going to benefit from this decisions today?
All right, who's next? State your name, please, and spelling so we can get it right.
Aaron Fritcher, A-A-R-O-N, last name Fritcher, F-R-I-T-C-H-E-R. I'm going to start off with saying that I FOIA'd 30 days worth of ambulance availability, and it seems to suggest that 2 ambulances are not going to be enough at all. 7 days, there were more than 2 ambulances out. 1 day, there were 4 ambulances out. And another day, there was 3 ambulances out at 3 separate occasions. So you're going to put, that was in a 30-day period, so that's 13 people that wouldn't have gotten picked up by a 911 emergency call. This does not include out-of-town transfers or discharges. This is just private line calls and 911 emergencies. Also, the dispatch protocol training. I FOIA'd any and all training of city or county dispatchers in regards to how they are going to dispatch the calls to Abbott, and they could not give me any training whatsoever. They have not received any training on how they are going to dispatch a call to Abbott. And at the last meeting, I overheard a dispatch supervisor tell an ambulance oversight committee member that she still hadn't been met with by the ambulance oversight committee or anybody from Abbott. I had a quick question: where are the regulations, terms, and conditions in the contract? And are you going to talk about, Jim, your family connections and the family connections of the board and the ambulance site committee to the managers of Abbott in Effingham? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Who else?
That's Adam Houston. Members of the Effingham County Board have I have asked several board members as well as ambulance oversight members in regards to the vetting process that has taken place to choose Abbott Ambulance/AMR. I have never been given a good response other than come to an ambulance oversight meeting. I have decided to do a little research and vetting of my own, and here are a few highlights of what I found in about 45 minutes of research. First of all, the New York Times published an article about AMR employee that had been fired because of a statement that was placed on social media. The courts ruled AMR was in the wrong and had to settle with that employee. Spokane, Washington, Spokesman News published an article that AMR, Spokane's ambulance service provider, had to pay just over $1 million plus interest as a result of overbilling over nearly 12,000 Spokane residents over 6 years. The Department of Justice has a press release in regards to AMR that had to pay over $9 million to settle a civil fraud case. The statement relates to allegations that Greenwood, Colorado-based company provided or offered inducements to Texas hospitals in the form of contracts known as swapping arrangements. Such contracts give the medical facilities discounts on transports in exchange for referral of all or some ambulance transports of patients being discharged from the hospitals, which were billed to Medicare. Illegal inducements corrupt the integrity of Medicare program by freezing out competitors, masking the true cost of services, and misdirecting program funds, among other things, said the Attorney General Peter Kaiser of the Civil Division. This is very much corruption and fraud. Here's another one. The Modesto Bee News Agency ran an article about AMR closing the regional billing operations, cutting nearly 200 jobs. This news agency confirmed that some of AMR's billing will be now handled overseas to India and Philippines. Is that what we really want Effingham County residents to have to deal with, is deal with the Philippines and India? Also, during my research, I found approximately 20 news articles from different news sources in regards to different counties, cities, towns, switching to get away from AMR and Abbott Ambulance. There were a variety of reasons, but most commonly was they didn't meet contractual obligations and had very slow response times. Some of those include Seattle, Washington fined AMR $900,000 for late response times ranging from 1 minute to more than an hour of patient having to wait for an ambulance. San Diego, missed response times. Madison County, Mississippi, Ridgeland, Mississippi, Madison, Mississippi for missed response times. Franklin County, Illinois, Benton Fire has to put on an ambulance to cover what Abbott has dropped and not been available to calls. Kittery Fire Chief Dave O'Brien stated, and I quote, AMR has a history of signing contracts knowing full well it cannot cover them. All you have to do is listen to the scanner for a day or two. You will hear that the area towns responding to cover 911 calls that AMR contracted to cover, but they can't. I have heard AMR management say that on more than one occasion the company does not make any money running 911 calls. It's the transfers that pay the employees. With that being said, the town of Kittery, Elliott, Berwick, Maine, and Newcastle, Somersworth are all times completely without coverage. Most of these had to do with missed response times as well as patient care. The ambulance contract that Mr. Neiman emailed me last week has nothing about the standard of care or response times to our Effingham County residents. The contract says the industry standard. I've spoken and researched with several EMS professionals, and there is no industry standard to EMS. In fact, the industry standard is the state law. If this is the case, our current provider, Altamont Ambulance, has met the state guidelines and met what your guys' standard is. In case, and as of this morning, I've contacted the Illinois Department of Public Health, and Altamont Ambulance is a licensed ambulance provider in the state of Illinois. How is Effingham County going to hold Abbott or AMR accountable if we don't have any guidelines spelled out in the contract? 7 ambulance services have been contacted from large to small in our area. Some of those being Arrow Ambulance, Decatur Ambulance, Dunn's Ambulance, and Sutton Ambulance. These are all very reputable companies within 60 miles of Effingham County. Not one of these services were giving RFPs or asked to talk about being a provider to Effingham County. I'd like to pose a question to the county board. With the information I've presented to you today, how can you vote consciously that Abbott or AMR is the best for the Effingham County residents? I'd like the county board to put on the brakes, go back, issue RFPs to every ambulance service that they can, or anybody that's interested in providing this, and start the process all over again and get away from the backroom family deals that the Effingham County Board has been doing for some time. Thank you.
Anybody else?
John Kraft. At the last meeting that really wasn't a meeting, I asked the attorney if he'd been appointed by the courts. He said he was, and then I found out that he wasn't. He's sworn as an assistant state's attorney. I didn't find any through the FOIA requests that we submitted. I didn't find any compensation setting. So nobody knows how he's being compensated at this point, because that's one of the things that the state attorney is supposed to set the compensation. Additionally, I want to reiterate one more time my concern about discussing the ambulance contract in closed session. I don't think you can discuss the terms of any contract, even cloaking it under the settlement negotiations or litigation, because it's essentially a contract. I think the only thing that you can discuss in closed session is yes, we can give this contract, we may be able to give this contract to the new ambulance company or whatever, or releasing the old ambulance company from the contract. I don't think any terms of the contract whatsoever can be discussed in closed session, even if it's part of a settlement agreement, because the contract is a contract that has to be discussed in the open. That's all I have.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Chairman. Name's Kirk Allen. Submitted a FOIA request. It's past due, and 3 of the requested items need to be addressed before any vote on this matter is taken, in my opinion. One of them was a copy of all communication by the ambulance committee and/or county board members of ambulance agencies in this vetting process. Second one was a copy of the vetting process followed for the selection of an ambulance service for the county. And the third one was a copy of any evaluation/comparisons used to determine the best ambulance service for the county. Currently, having those not answered, it's a violation of the Freedom of Information Act by failing to respond, and I suspect that there's an underlying reason for the request. My questions are, does this board or any of its committees possess communications with the ambulance agencies that were vetted? Does anybody care to answer that? No comment?
No comment.
No comment. Does this board or any of its committees possess a copy of the vetting process used? No comment?
No comment.
Does this board or any of its committees possess a copy of the evaluation or / comparisons used to determine the best ambulance service for the county? No comment. It's been reported to us, and I don't know these people, but it's been reported to us that Larry Tees, Joe Tees, Don Tees, and Chris Tees are all going to be heading the operation of Abbott Ambulance in Effingham. Does this county board have any information to refute or confirm this accusation? If true, is this not a form of nepotism?
I will address that one,
Thank you, sir.
because it affects me personally. Larry Teese is my uncle. He works for Air Evac Life Team. He has no plans of working for Abbott. Joe Teese, is my understanding, works for Abbott and has for about a year. I don't know if his status is full-time or part-time. I know he works for Dunn's as well at the Mattoon. Dawn Teese, I have no idea what her status is. I don't think she works for Abbott. And as far as Chris Teese, he is the chief of police up at Toledo. Whether he changes employment or not is out of my purview. I don't know.
Do you know if he's still chief up there?
Yes, he is. As far as I know, he is.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate that input. I'm sure the people here appreciate the response as well. Contrary to claims by your legal counsel, it's evident by the lack of records and the chairman's own response to my questions previously, there's not been an extensive vetting process. And I take that based on the response was 2 agencies were vetted. We still don't know what 2 agencies those were, but those agencies were vetted 4 years ago. And that was the response, the email response I got back, was the vetting took place 4 years ago. There's a lot that changes in 4 years. As a fire chief and an EMT, I would urge you to establish an independent vetting process that includes RFPs to ensure the residents are in fact getting the best service available. Through that process, if done independently and not with people who are tied to any of the agencies past or present, if Abbott comes out on top, then great. But an RFP needs to be done, in my opinion. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Okay, seeing none. We've just, after discussing this with the attorneys, I will address one thing that Adam said, that he says that there is no standard of care in place. In my team, in 2014, the board passed the standard of care ordinance, which did not apply to Altamont Ambulance because they had an arrangement with the county before, and were grandfathered in. However, every new service does have a standard of care that they have to apply with, which is stricter than the state of Illinois. I see no need to go to executive session for this. I think we can discuss it out in the open, because for all intents and purposes, the lawsuit is settled. So there would not be any evidentiary problems. when we agreed to settle the lawsuit in March, that was contingent upon Altamont and Abbott reaching an agreement. They have reached an agreement and signed their documents. We are waiting on whether or not basically what we're voting on today is going to be whether or not we're going to exist under the old contract, which is unending, and by definition on both sides of the table was a mess. Or whether we're going to engage in a new contract, which gives us a 90-day out.
Both sides of it.
Both sides have a 90-day out without cause. Part of that is if we do exercise the without cause option, that we pick up the remainder of their lease until 2022, which is the end of this contract. Any new service that comes in would be required then by us to pick up the remainder of the lease if we exercise the option without cause. With regards to the minimum, if you open up
The lease is on the
lease would-
physical
lease would be on the
building.
physical building of where the ambulance will be
Yeah.
housed. If you go to item 2, you notice there's some stuff in red that's been changed from what we released earlier. In the
Mr. Chairman,
interest,
can we have a copy of that?
I will read it to you,
Okay.
and then it'll be available. Starting with halfway down the paragraph, it says, "The agency and the contractor agree they shall initially, as a change, maintain a minimum of 2 ALS ambulances in Effingham County, exclusive of ambulances being utilized for non-emergency transfers at all times to ensure adequate coverage of 911 emergency calls in the county. The parties agree that this minimum number could increase if the call volume justifies additional ambulances and personnel to be available to serve the citizens of Effingham County." I've been assured by Altamont by Abbott, their business plan is to provide 600 unit hours, 600 ambulance hours per week,
That's 3.5 ambulances.
based upon the time of day. Sometimes you will have more, sometimes you will have fewer.
That's just during the transition.
That is the minimum that they will. The other part that is in red, if you go to number 12, second paragraph, it's basically the out clause, and it has to do, it's about the second paragraph. In the event agency exercises its right to terminate without cause, the agency shall be responsible for the remaining payments owed to the contractor's landlord under that certain lease for contractor's principal operations in Effingham County, Illinois. The parties understand and agree that agency obligation in that regard shall not extend beyond April 2022 and the termination date of this agreement unless extended by the parties by a subsequent written agreement. That was agreed to by both parties this morning, as was the other part that has been changed in red. Do I have a motion?
Can we expand just a little bit so everybody understands on the amount of ambulances available?
Yes.
Discussion.
Well, I would rather have the motion, the second, and then the discussion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
A motion by Karen. Second. Seconded by Jeff.
What's the motion?
The motion is
To accept this contract.
to accept the contract as written.
Correct.
Correct.
And you realize 600 hours is less than 2 ambulances, right?
It is not less than 2 ambulances.
How so?
600 unit hours.
600 unit hours?
Yes.
So per ambulance?
Per ambulance.
600 hours per ambulance.
600 hours of ambulance, not 600 hours of personnel.
And that's what I wanted to expand
So
on.
hold on, I have a motion and a second. Is there any other questions on the nature of the motion?
We didn't hear what the motion was yet.
She repeated it, to accept the contract.
To accept the contract?
To accept the contract as
As
presented.
presented.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yeah. I have something after Dave.
I just wanted to expand because and truly until last night, I didn't understand exactly what the 600 hours meant until I talked to Chris and Mike and a few others.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if everybody could use their outside voices, that would be a great help.
Sure would.
It's on.
It is on, I certainly agree.
Okay, speak up.
I'm sorry, I thought I was talking loud enough. I just wanted to expand on that a little bit because I didn't understand what it meant either. Just during the transition period is what we're talking about, where the two ALS are coming from Abbott, correct? And then in addition, Terry's gonna provide with his service some additional ambulance coverage.
During the transition period, yes.
Okay, so we're not gonna have just two ambulances, we're gonna have up to.
Dave, this is the contract, it doesn't say during the transition period only. This is it for the 5 years.
No.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is.
But I think.
I mean, they can expand it, they can add to it based on call volume, but this is the minimum required is what they have. Their contractual obligation is to provide two. And then as call volume increases, and I guess the ambulance oversight committee and them get together and say, hey, you're missing calls, your response times aren't good enough, and then they increase.
People are dying.
I mean, but, you know, no, this is the actual minimum that's stated in the contract. It didn't say during the transition period, it's the contract.
Well, the way it was presented to me was that we would have at the very least, 4 or 5 on call all the time, and they would all be ALS. And once the transition period is over.
Where is that? Explain that in the contract.
All the rigs will be ALS.
All.
Two.
of them.
All of the rigs that Abbott provides will be ALS.
After the transition period.
After the transition, they will all be ALS.
Which will be
But they only have to be two.
That's in the contract?
Dave, I think some of the confusion is that because of the timing of the handoff, the existing contract needs to remain in effect until the handoff is done. So the old contract, the terms thereof, will bind both Altamont and Abbott until the assignment occurs. Once the assignment occurs, this language says that Abbott will be required initially to provide 2 ALS rigs at a minimum, and that's exclusive of doing non-emergency transfers. Now, if that doesn't work,
It won't.
you can say you need more, and that's the point of having the out clause. So that's what the contract says.
John?
Okay. I have a couple things. I'm not opposed to Abbott, first off, I want to make that clear. I think that they should have been involved in the process. We should have, vetted them like everybody else. To my knowledge, it was just them. I guess there's another firm that was vetted at the same time. Is that correct, Mike? Was there a second one? Who was the second one? Who was the second firm that was vetted?
Chris, can I answer or not?
Sure.
Reed.
Medic one.
Medic one, so you have 2 that were vetted, and my issue with that is, I called David Berkman, which owns Decatur Ambulance. He said, never contacted, no request for proposal would come to him. I said, if it would have come to you, would you have responded, would you have wanted to bid on the business in Effingham? Yes, I would have. I said, within 90 days, could you have had 6 units down, 6 ambulances in Effingham County? Yes, I could have. So I called another one just to check, just to kind of do my due diligence. I called Arrow and talked to the director, Larry, the director of ambulance services for Carl, which is Arrow Ambulance. And I talked to him and I said, did you get a request for a proposal for Effingham County? No, I did not. If you would have, would you have provided a quote or a bid for the business in Effingham County? Yes, we would have. In 90 days, could you have had 6 units down there? Yes, I could have. So this whole thing, or this ruse about we did this extensive vetting process, to me, clearly, if I call the first 2 people I call, and they say they haven't even been contacted, we didn't do a very extensive vetting process, okay, as a county. And I'm not saying that Abbott and all these shouldn't have been, and we might not have come to the same conclusion, and that Abbott ends up being the peak. But that's my first issue, is that I don't think we did the process that we should have followed, not in the best interest of the taxpayers of Effingham County. The second thing is, and this goes back to the contract, and I talked to Chris about this briefly the other day, is I'm looking for the industry standards. I'm not finding any. I mean, I'm Googled and Googled and Googled, spent hours looking for these things. I did, however, find EMS World, which is the publication that handles, that particular industry, and they say there are none. First, there is no federal law regarding response times. After that, through research, they could not find any state laws that pertain to response time. That's handled, and according to this article, and I could go on and read the whole thing, but according to the article, it's handled in the contracts, or at least amendments to the contract, schedules, that lays out what your response times are. And in that, a lot of it's geographical, and many of them, and I got several of them here. If the board wants to look, it's not that hard to find them, that show that in different instances, they've even broke it down, like Effingham would have like an 8-minute response times for a heart attack, maybe Dietrich's 15 minutes or something like that. But it's all laid out in there, and if they miss those response times, then there's a stick and a carrot. I mean, they get rewarded by getting their full compensation. If they don't do that, then a lot of times they get fined if they miss a response time. And that is in the best interest of Effingham County residents, not a contract that clearly lets them do the industry standard, which doesn't exist. And even if it did, even if there was some kind of wisdom within the ambulance oversight committee, they determined some kind of response times, it's clearly not laid out in a contractual arrangement to where they would have to fulfill that. So that's another huge issue for me. And I can't, in my best conscience, go to bed tonight and sleep if I vote yes for this contract, knowing I'm putting Effingham County residents at risk. And I think this contract clearly does that, the way it's written today. Now, could it be fixed? Yeah, I think it could be. And I talked to Chris too about, he said, well, the contract would have to be 30 pages long to cover that stuff. Well, this one is 22 pages long. This contract that I'm looking at here for services is 54 pages, I think. 54 pages. Another one that's 33 pages. Another one that's 50 pages. I mean, and you guys had years, before I got on the board, years and years and years to put this together. I mean, our contract's 7 pages long, and 2 of those pages talk about the exclusivity that Abbott has in the county. I mean, so it doesn't lay out a good, and I know we got the ordinance, which I was unaware of, about the patient care, and maybe it's got response times in there, how quick they have to be.
It's the standard of care.
So, I mean, but in my opinion, until we fix those things in there, and I talked to Chris about this, and he said, well, we can add amendments or add addendums to the back of the contract that maybe clearly states what our response times will be, what they would have to fulfill. But I don't think it should just be we either love them or we kick them out in 90 days, because then we're right back in the same boat we were in before. And I don't think this contract actually puts us in that much better, except for the 90-day out provision, puts us in a much better position than where we were before this. It clearly doesn't on the number of ambulances required. So, I mean, in terms of response times, there's nothing in there. And I don't want to be out at Lake Sarah and drop over from a heart attack and we don't have an ALS unit come and pick me up. I mean, quite frankly, And so, I mean, there's just no way that in good conscience that I could vote to ratify a contract like this when I think we could do a much better job. And I'm not saying this shouldn't be Abbott. I'm really not saying that. But in this case, those are 2 major issues that I see with it. One, we didn't follow a very transparent process in the beginning, and we didn't vet enough companies, at least send out requests for proposals. And I got what one of those looks like too, what a request for proposal looks like. I mean, these are easy to find. They're not difficult. And what you send out, say, this is what we want you to look at. Come back, bid on the business. And we did none of that, to my knowledge, and according to the answers that were given today to either Kirk or John, I can't remember which one asked it, but we have no documentation of the vetting process either. So, I mean, to me, I think within a month or 2, we should be able to have 3 or 4 ambulance services providing us, if we give them a request for a proposal, and I don't think 2 or 3 months is too long to wait to make sure that we shore this up and that it's actually a good deal for the residents of Effingham County, and that may be Abbott, like I said. But we ought to do that homework, and we ought to make sure that it is. And we certainly shouldn't give a contract that's 7 pages long and 2 pages of it talk about the exclusivity to Abbott for the county, that they get to work in the county, nobody else gets to give them any competition. I'm not a big fan of that in the first place. I understand the argument behind it about that, there may not be enough business. I do understand that side of it. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. And, but clearly, what we have compared to when I'm looking at these other contracts is, it looks like Abbott wrote this for the most part, and it favors them in most instances. So, except for the 90-day out clause, which puts us right back in the bad situation that we're in right now, where we're trying to look for a service. So, that's my 2 cents worth.
Any other discussion? This is discussion among the board. We've already had public comment. Nothing? Question?
Blake Foster,
Yes.
Jim Newman,
Yes.
okay. Karen Luttrell,
Yes.
David Campbell,
Yes.
John Perry,
No.
Jeff Simpson,
Yes.
Doug McCain. Yes. Joe Taylor.
Yes.
Have a motion to adjourn.
Hope it's one of your family members.
Motion? Any
Yeah, me,
discussion?
shouldn't have voted.
There you go. Nepotism at its best.
Family ties.
You're adjourned.
You gonna go visit the EMA building next, Jim?
I hope it is all you guys.
Well, it's
Like
a waste of my
family
fucking time.
reunion.
I want to know if the building on Evergreen that they're going to be required to use. Who owns that? Anybody get kickback?
No comment?
Of course, no comment.
There's a lot of chiefs in here, just so you know. Fire districts have the first right of refusal as far as who they want as their ambulance service. Take that forward to court. Shumway, every single county department besides Effingham wants an ambulance service. They can come together, or even just a few. It's in your hands. You don't have to deal with this.
Huh?